I first got involved with the Peace and Justice Studies program at an important time in my life. I was watching the TV and doing some research about all of the atrocities and the things that were playing out in the Sudan. And I thought, you know, the Sudan needs people over there. They need activists, they need people on the ground, they need people helping out. So I decided that I was just going to get on a plane and go over to Sudan and try and meet up with some group and do whatever I could to help. And I ran the idea past one of my professors here at UVU, and he said, well, before you do that, why don't you go speak with Dr. Minch? And you know, he's the director of the Peace and Justice Studies program, and you know, kind of get his advice and see what he thinks. So I went over to Dr. Minch's office and I started you know, running my idea by him, and he listened very intently, and after I was done, he said, well, before you do that, you know, maybe you ought to consider taking a Peace and Justice Studies course. So you can learn a little bit more about the theory behind a lot of the things that you're talking about, the methodology, how one might approach doing these sorts of things. I can see that the activism is there, and I can see that you're passionate about doing it, but you might be so much more, you might be more equipped to do what you want to do and be successful in doing it if you had this other background. So I took his advice and I did that, and it turned out to be the best decision that I could have made, because I did learn about precisely those things that he was talking about, and I discovered that I needed to continue on with my education and get a degree and continue advancing and learning about these ideas, because at that point I believed that I would be more effective in creating meaningful change, which was my original goal. And so that's what I've done. I graduated with my bachelor's degree last summer, and while a part of the Peace and Justice Studies program, I've been able to do a number of things which have been very influential in my life and have helped me sort of understand better what it is that I want to do and how to go about doing it. And so one of the very first thing that I was able to do as part of the program was to go to the Middle East and participate in a delegation on peace building and conflict resolution in Israel and Palestine. And Dr. Minch helped me secure some funds to do that. And we went over there for 2 weeks and examined what was happening on the ground and listened to Israelis and Palestinians talk about the struggles and the possibilities for peace and conflict resolution. And we came back from that delegation strong supporters of nonviolent activism and the importance of empowering individuals in our communities to be peace builders. And it didn't necessarily have to be for that particular issue, but for other issues that people in the community are passionate about and want to get more involved with and you know, create meaningful change, you know, from how they perceive that and these other issues that they're interested in. And so that was just one of the things that was important for me, and I know that all of you guys here have similar stories and similar things that you're interested in. And
what was the delegation to? Like, was there an organization that was running that?
Yeah, it was sponsored by 2 NGOs they were based out of Washington, D.C. One was the Interfaith Peace Builders, and one was the National Peace Foundation. And they were 2 organizations that sort of came together and cooperated to you know, take this particular delegation and others before ours to Israel and Palestine to learn about what's going on.
Well, it's great that the Peace and Justice Studies program was able to put you, you know, right on the ground, you know, and maybe you or another student after you might have been with that delegation in Gaza, and they would have seen, you know, what it was like there right before the violence started, you know.
No, absolutely. I mean, the Peace and Justice Studies program for me, has been instrumental in not only, you know, equipping me to do those things that I want to do, but teaching me how to do it, how to be successful, helping me to understand, you know, what conflict resolution means. How does one go about thinking about how to resolve a conflict? And so it's been perfect for me now.
That I remember that the conference that you were talking about back in 2009, when we had it was the topic of genocide, right? And we had those different, like, major scholars in the field come and speak to, you know, the students here at UVU, and that for me was a really important experience, because I got to interact with scholars, you know, experts in genocide studies that I now try to, you know, have conversations with and work with, right? Having done a master's in human rights and genocide studies, I now interact with these folks kind of on a little bit more of a level, right? And, you know, Peace and Justice Studies here at UVU kind of set me on the path to doing that, right? And since I've obtained my master's, I've been able to go and present my research at different conferences with, you know, the likes of, you know, those folks like Samuel Totten and Helen Fine, and others that came to campus here. And I remember that same presentation that Sam Totten gave on the Sudan.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, I think that's one of the great things about Peace and Justice Studies as well, is that they bring scholars and practitioners, people who are right at the front of their fields, they're not just abstract academics, but they're people who are kind of, they've been there, they've been to these parts of the world, and they research and they think about it a lot. And, you know, we're able to have them come to our campus and relay those experiences and that information to us. So I think Samuel Totten, he'd been on the State Department's investigation team in the Sudan and Darfur in particular. And so he brought, you know, all those stories that he told were things that he'd experienced in the field, and that was, you know, one of the powerful parts of his presentation, I thought.
Yeah, that was a powerful conference.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's through conferences like that that we as students can learn those things that we need to learn, which are going to help us go out into the field and be successful doing those things that are important. And, you know, there's been other conferences like that, which have also been, you know, really powerful, I think, for students who have attended.
And as a student, I was able to actually participate with other students in organising the conference. You know, we were involved in, you know, researching speakers and inviting people to come, and then helping, you know, logistical things on the ground. And then as a Peace and Justice Studies student, helping organise the conference, we were able to have kind of more intimate interactions with these, you know, important folks who'd come and speak to us. And that was pretty amazing, right? I remember sitting down and having a lunch with Helen Fine, and here's this older lady who's this fantastic, you know, scholar, and, you know, she works at these, you know, top-notch Ivy League universities, and here I have this priceless opportunity of just being able to sit down and talk to her, right? Which was pretty amazing.